like both.
If you're actually making me pick, it's Jackie Chan.
100%.
There's not even close.
And it's funny because I really do like Francis Chan.
Yeah.
But if you're going to pit the two against each other, Jackie
Well,
Chan
he's winning
is fantastic.
in a fight for sure.
Ooh, I don't know about that, man.
Really?
Francis Chan's a scrapper.
He's got some pretty.
He's a bigger dude,
that
yeah.
analogy with the rope. Actually, maybe he's like uses that as a
He
weapon.
uses the rope. That is the thing. The
that's
rope is a weapon.
And I had a quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
We're just getting here on our first live event,
Guys,
everybody.
First live event.
We're alive.
I love that I was surprised that we were live. That's always the best way to go live. Like, we're live.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Oh, we're live.
I'm going to attempt throughout this to
Are you going to try and move the
switch
cameras around?
Just every once in a while, I'm going
Okay.
to swap one out.
That's fun.
Yeah, so we're excited to be live, although my camera looks completely blank. Oh, there it is.
Hey.
So that's what's fun. Yeah, so we all know. Oh, wait. So we all know which one.
Nice. It's gonna be like the worst version of a newscast of all time.
Yeah, it's not going to be. I'm not going to do that much. Which is why here's the deal. Hey, if you are watching right now and you're like, man, that'd be fun to be a part of the You Won't Hate It team.
Going right into this.
Right at it.
Man, let us know. It'd be so fun if somebody kind of produced this and like that'd
the
be great.
cameras. Yeah,
Did a
the
better
director,
job.
So fun.
director of photography would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
You work the cameras. That'd be great.
And if you can tap an iPad
Yeah.
I mean, literally, yeah. It's
and
touching.
handle cigar smoke,
Yeah. Oh,
that's
you know
the
what?
thing.
That's not true. They could do it outside.
And if you can,
How long's your cable?
And if you
They could do it in
and if
the-
you can generate forced laughter in the right times,
That's
that'd
true.
be really helpful.
No, we could drag it. They could sit in the kitchen and have lunch,
That's
and
fair.
like we would provide lunch.
What?
Well, you
Ryan will provide lunch.
peanut butter and jelly.
I don't think they want to sit in the kitchen. What makes you think they want to be in another room?
No, he
doing
was
this?
saying if it was
Oh, if they don't like cigar
cigar smoke. Yeah.
Don't even,
It probably
don't
wouldn't
even
work
think about
out.
Oh, here's the thing though.
it. What?
We would provide a cigar.
There's a lot of promises being made here. I like
If
it.
you came and sat and hung out with us, it's an
Just
hour
so
and a
you,
half.
just
2
so you
hours of
know,
work.
that right there is going to get a lot of people interested in doing this.
Hey, that's delicious.
This is like our
isn't that
lunchtime.
great?
Right off
One,
the foot.
yeah.
So lunchtime live. So hopefully you're enjoying some food while we're enjoying a cigar
Yeah.
on your lunch
We're basically
break.
just saying, come hang out with us. Let's chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time. What are you smoking over there, Ryan? Might as well do that. We're going live. People might want to know real
this
quickly.
is the that new Tatuaje, the new to me, the Cajonu
2012?
2018.
Oh, 2018.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why
Oh,
it's
it's
supposed to be
another
good.
Is it-
new tatuaje.
Yeah.
Cajon.
Oh, the emphasis. Tatuaje.
Hey.
That was my favorite.
I feel like it's the cajonu. Anything that sounds like cajone, I'm always like, what? How does that work? What's the relation between cajones
What's that?
and
That's the
cajonu?
thumbnail.
What was the thumbnail?
It's an old thumbnail from a sermon series.
Oh man,
It's
They
just
have something about the abundant life. That's the
we're
thumbnail.
still figuring this out, guys. So bear with us. But we just wanted to have some fun and hang out, and
Maybe
we
we'll
thought,
change the thumbnail out.
yeah, we'll figure it all out. But more importantly,
Hey, welcome to You Won't Hate It, where we talk about life through the lens of pastors at the length of a cigar. I'm Josh.
I am Ryan.
I'm Floyd.
I'm Joe, and I'm answering questions about people like, hey, you guys live right now?
Oh, are you really?
We
Yeah.
are live.
Oh, that's
People wanna
funny.
know.
I don't know where I put my phone.
Yeah,
I
people
am
are asking questions
smoking-
like, hey, are you guys live right now? We're like, we are live right now. What are you
Yes, we
smoking?
are.
I am smoking the Cohiba Purple Label Riviera.
Okay.
It is amazing right off the foot.
And I'm smoking the LFD. I got Cajones LFD, which is similar to the Cajonu.
No, are you doing the double Ajero or the
It's the
reserve?
No, it's the Flor Dominican.
No,
Dominicana. Is that it? Is that the right one?
this is how you.
That's all it
know.
says.
This is how you know
Airbender.
somebody.
This is
It's the last Airbender. It's the last Airbender
Okay,
LFD.
so yeah, LFD
like
stands
it.
for the Flor Dominican. That little Dominicana, the little thing at the bottom is the one.
you
So
what it
that's
is.
the Airbender.
Yeah, it's the Airbender.
So because I got you the double Ajero.
Yeah. This will be
Not
like,
that one.
so for the next couple weeks, I'll
The
actually tell you
better.
what I'm smoking because I got them for birthday gifts. After that, you won't want to know.
the better guy got him the lesser cigar.
That's right. But
I
let's
don't
not
think
gonna-
it's lesser.
It's not lesser?
No, I
Then
think it's a
the-
great cigar.
The lesser guy got him the...
But here's
Okay,
the deal:
wait,
you're
wait.
probably not here to watch.
One
or to
second.
listen
If
to-
somebody asking me if we're live right now, and I'm saying we are,
yeah,
because they're saying, are you running late?
you're.
We're live
No, 'cause he
we're
saw it.
live on YouTube.
Josh
Yeah.
saw it. Yeah.
I don't
Oh, I wonder if they
They think we're
live on Facebook.
And I just told them it was YouTube, and
Because I see it.
Okay, I don't know why they're not seeing it.
I wonder if next week I could do live on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. I just thought of that.
I love how like this is so working out this first thing. We've always pre-recorded and edited these, so bear with us with our little technical difficulties here, just to make sure. But I'll keep checking in with you guys if you are watching this. I'm trying to get an idea if I can see it. Maybe because you guys are signed in.
No, no, because I did it public. Apologies, everyone. We will get to a topic in about 4 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Then.
Okay, it's up.
Good.
Good. We're good.
I am actually intrigued with what we've been talking about. I think Floyd brought it up first, and I was like, oh my gosh, the Eric Metaxas. Because
he was actually playing it on his computer, and you're like, what? I've been listening to that.
Because I just discovered that guy.
Who's he being interviewed by?
Less than a month ago. So Jordan Peterson is one interview that's very good. I heard him preach a sermon in a church. He actually was the speaker in a church, and so he's a Christian dude. His conversion story is super interesting.
That was actually the video that I was watching. This was like
he talked about it was a dream.
10-minute conversion. Peterson apparently has this thing where he asks people how they became a Christian, and there's a bunch of
that's right.
videos.
I forgot. He does one of the ones that I heard. It was on Peterson's because they try to dissect like it's a golden fish, and it's totally fun. So very interesting story that guy has. Brilliant dude. Went to Yale, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Totally brilliant. Has a great conversion story, and is now very. I don't want to say aggressive because I think that comes across negative.
Outspoken.
He's a very outspoken, and it was the reason I liked it so much. So we'll stop beating around the bush here. He very much is kind of like I don't want to say he's changing my mind, but the topic itself and the way he speaks about it is making me rethink my disdain to even bring up politics. What do you guys think?
Sure. I mean, and I don't I don't think that the squeaky shoe.
Was that your shoe?
That was my shoe.
Gosh.
It was a bird.
And I don't
Anytime Floyd talks, all of a sudden it sounds like he broke up in a basketball game.
I don't think that it
Quick
is
pickup
that
game.
He's causing you to maybe rethink is the right word, but it's not. It's not like we're questioning anything that we believe. I think maybe he is going to help clarify our approach.
Yes, but I would say he's actually he is changing a little bit of what I think.
Well, let's start with the title of his book that I want to know. Do we even think it's biblical? Because here's the subtitle, and the book is "Letter to the American Church: Silence in the Face of Evil Itself." In the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us guiltless. I don't even think you need to read the book to have an opinion about what he's saying right there. Right off the bat, you're like, is that biblical what he's saying?
I don't know if I'd call that a subtitle. It's a tagline on his website.
Sure. Well, he's saying it. Either way,
he's saying it.
Oh, yeah.
It's his. Right. Those are his words. Yeah.
So what do you see, Joe, seem to have the most
anger?
No, the most outward response to that. So I think you have the most opinion. So I'm curious, what do you think when you read that? What are your thoughts?
It reminds me of the discussion we just had for an hour and a half last Thursday about the idea of what's a Christian's role in moral decay, right? Because you could see with John the Baptist calls out Herod, right, for his moral response. You could see in the Old Testament, you see Ezra stab people with a spear through a man and a woman with a prostitute, and saying because that's creating moral decay. We see a lot of moral decay dealt with.
I mean, the last example got a little aggressive.
It did get aggressive. It did get aggressive. Also the bears that devoured the guys who made fun for being bald. So he's like, he's like he needs to deal with moral issues.
If there's one lesson that you should learn, it's don't make fun of people's baldness.
That's right.
It's pretty clear.
After that, so this is John the Baptist leading up to Jesus. I'm trying to find a spot in Scripture where post-resurrection, that's the thing to do. Whereas, in fact, I see more along the lines in in this idea that we're supposed to trust the government and that God has put them in the place for a reason, that they have a sword.
I feel kind of bad because I almost feel like we shouldn't be talking about this until you listen to his breakdown, because I thought the same thing, and he goes very specifically over the difference between giving Caesar what is Caesar's, surrendering to the government, and when the government does something contrary to Christ,
right?
Which obviously they did back then too, and then Christ's response. And so he brings up a couple of examples which I had never, I guess I don't want to say I forgot or ignored, but I guess I had just kind of removed them from my conscience about how Jesus and a lot of the disciples did stand up and do things, and actually like they weren't silent on everything. And I think the biggest distinction that I've always said that I have never known how to maneuver is that we are in a different governmental structure and a different system, and we're supposed to be founded on different values. And so all of that taken into account, I'm like, if we were in a true oligarchy, or we were in like something that was oppressive, I would actually still say that we fight, but it would just be a different version. Whereas today, we're supposed to have freedom of religion, and we're supposed to have a freedom of speech, so we can use those things.
And I don't disagree with. I'm not even saying disagree with that. I'm saying I'm trying to find there's a difference between that, and this is a quote from him: "To not act is itself evil." Like, I'm like, no, you're not saying here's a good idea to do. He's saying you're into evil by not acting. That's a strong line.
It is, but isn't that like? Were you going to say the Roosevelt quote? Not Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt, yeah.
Was it Roosevelt?
Yeah, Roosevelt said, for all that it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. There's been a lot of comparison to Metaxas' book with Bonhoeffer.
Those are the two people that come to you. How you not read it and think Bonhoeffer and Teddy?
He wrote, so Metaxas wrote a biography on Bonhoeffer that is gorgeous. I've listened to pieces of it, and I'm like, I downloaded it pretty quick because I thought it was really cool.
Bonhoeffer, if he had succeeded in assassinating Hitler.
Well, isn't this the classic question, right?
Is
Would
that
you
the
kill
Valkyrie
Hitler
project?
if you could? Like they ask Christians, yes.
Yeah. The what project?
The Valkyrie project?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's the question you ask yourself. Would you kill Hitler if you could? So now you're just saying is maybe the lesser would be, would you stand up against Hitler? And I'm not even saying not to do this stuff. I'm just saying like, he's coming from it as like a biblical foundation. And I think it's, ready for the ding? I think it's nuanced. I think there are things like, the problem is when you're like, we know what Hitler did. So obviously everybody in the world's like, yes, we'd stand against Hitler.
Sure, but this is his point, and I do. And
slow erosion.
This is what I appreciated, is that he makes a point in saying that they got to where their final destination of horrific destruction and murder and genocide. They got there starting in the exact same way, which was a slow burn. It's the whole the frog in the boiling pot.
Right.
And now is today's society? And again, I'm just picking at this, guys. I'm just trying.
Oh, we should know that literally. And the only reason I'm saying any of this is because I heard him about a month to 5 weeks ago. And started listening to all his stuff, and so let
me make this before he goes away from that. So is then the implication? I'm bringing all this up because I want to get into it. It's big end. Is the implication of today's current society is going to become Nazis at the end of it? Right. That's the whole point of making this. I'm like, because that is a humongous statement. You might be right. It's just massive thing to say.
Well, I think first of all, I think it's important to clarify, like when he's saying to act, he's not saying take up arms. He's saying to become politically active, to use your voice.
Yeah, sure.
And so, and I think that though, to his point, some of the same degradation, for lack of a better terminology, of society that we see now, some of the shifts that we see away from being a godly nation, a Christian nation, is the same thing that happened in Germany
Nazi Germany took God out of the equation very early, took it off the money, took it out of everywhere.
So they did that first. That was actually
one of the very first moves they made, because the whole idea was then morality became interpretable. You could kind of say, all right, because there's no longer an all-knowing, all-truthful God, so now we can interpret morality to whatever suits best for us, which set up perfectly to do the horrible things they did. So I get that concern.
So his point is just that. It's that it is a far stretch to say that from where we are now, we're going to start a genocide.
Right.
That's a far stretch. But the stretch that I was intrigued with and still am is the path that we're on. And I'm not one of those weird guys that's doom and gloom. I'm really not.
And
I
describe
actually,
that path when you say it, so we know what we're talking about. Like,
Right.
what path are you thinking of
The
talking about?
path is the beginning of, and this is where it gets dicey, but the path of changing the definition of truth, saying that truth is subjective. And I'm not saying, I understand somebody saying my personal truth because
course.
they're saying, like, from
Their
my
rights as an
perspective
American.
in my
You're-
life.
At that point, you're
exactly.
talking about rights. We're
Right.
not talking about the idea of, like, whether you murder people.
Totally.
Right.
And I get all of that.
But the truth that is in danger is that truth. That truth of
Exactly.
is like, if there is no God, then is murder wrong?
Because of,
is worth talking
because
about.
you
Changing the
can't,
value of truth, too.
and you don't get to, and this is the hard part, and I want to have these conversations calmly, because I think what happens oftentimes
That's not happening.
is you start to get worked up so brutally. And I've spoken with and I've heard a ton of debates and interviews when it's very divisive sides pitted against each other, a strong evangelical against an atheist, and then it's just hate and both parties get super angry. But I'm like, here's the deal, truthfully. I think that an atheist can have a moral standard. Absolutely. I don't think
100%.
that's weird.
Yeah.
I will say, though, it's interesting because where does that standard come from?
It comes
and
from a
why?
collective, and the problem is
That it can
collectively you
change.
can become cannibals.
Yes.
Right? We've
Yes.
seen societies that are cannibalistic. So
Yeah.
basically the whole idea is you can have a collective standard, but the reality is collectively you could be wrong. We've all been collectively wrong before.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's kind of and it's not that atheists can't do anything good or they only have bad. I'm just saying, like, I think that's a flawed beginning
Yes.
of how to determine what's best for people. And they would say that God's a flawed beginning.
Sure.
But I would at least say, in the standard of at least Judeo-Christianity, God's
Yeah.
loving.
And that's a standard that, and I think it gets dicey when the standard of Christianity and God's truth, when the church starts to move that also. Because that's happened throughout the years where the
That's
church has
also
moved
worth
the
talking
standards.
about that, right?
Yeah.
Where that upsets me. I like the scientific process when the church goes through that in terms of, hey, we thought this, we were wrong. I understand changing it like that. But when there's pretty clear standards and honestly building blocks that we've built the earliest church on, in fact, the ancient Hebrew before that, that we're pretty clear on slavery's bad, murder is bad. We have these foundations. I'm not saying we're moving those, but there is this weird, you do see it over time where we move stuff, and I'm like, how did you not see that was wrong to begin with?
Right.
Like, that was so clearly, and I think about, and I'm
group
dancing around it because I don't want to mention some of the church names, the religion names, but when they change stuff and you're like, you thought that was okay then? I don't care how long ago that was a bad take on society and what's right and wrong. So,
And we probably should say, too, none of us have read the book.
I have not read the book.
No, I'm literally responding to a statement. If you're coming from a spiritual perspective and you're going to say something is evil, and if you're saying you're a Christian, my first thought is, where is that in the Bible? Not that even your take is off. That's such a hot take to me.
But I will say this. So if you were to take sentences that we say during a sermon and say, well, he said this without
everybody would agree.
Without right.
Out of
With
context.
no context, they
Without
always
it being
agree.
explained, yeah.
Right.
So there's a good chance it's got some of that because he is
Anyone.
a surprisingly articulate, intelligent man that probably breaks that down and explains it very thoroughly. Even in the interviews and the speeches that I've heard him give, he does break things down very well. He does, and this is the part I kind of want to get into more than anything. He does encourage Christians to speak up politically.
Right.
And to move politically, and he does, and I've heard him.
I was just going to ask you, what is so then what is it look like to act? I'll go with Teddy Roosevelt. You know what I mean? Like, what should we do instead of do nothing? Because I like Teddy's version better.
Yeah.
You know, so doing nothing, I obviously don't think is the right thing to do. And And I think society in general always has recency biases that we're in the worst society. I've heard people say that. I'm like, the Babylonians would gut the women from stem to stern, pregnant women. I'm like, that's a silly argument.
It's so stupid.
At the same time, other people will be like, this is the greatest time we've ever lived in. I'm like, what? Like, that's also a little bit recency bias. Maybe it's technology and things feel better.
What's funny,
There's
though?
plenty to stand against.
I hate how – I don't hate it. I love it. But it's funny to me how many tangents we go on. Because I can't think of a better time in history.
Oh, you're just saying, like, so you think this is the best time in history?
How could it not? Like,
being with Jesus seems
I'm
great.
open to being wrong, but I'm like,
This is a pretty great time.
when was it better?
I think the challenge would be this, is because it's what we've like in 1980, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hadn't been born yet.
That was almost the only era that I was thinking through was the late 80s.
I'm just
mid to
saying,
late
like,
80s.
I'm just saying, in that place, I was happy. It wasn't like I was like my family were in some.
But you
turmoil.
were so stupid.
I'll tell you this: my
truthfully.
parents could buy a house for $26,000.
Yeah.
Their salary to owning a home ratio was
Exactly.
really good.
Yeah,
right.
I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like that's some horrible time. Go down to the 1950s.
Oh, I think the 50s
Okay,
were
I'm saying, like,
horrible.
doesn't have to be in America.
No,
go
no.
to someplace else where there's an epic racism. Just
No,
go to other
right.
countries.
Yeah, no, I think that, and I do mean this. I think pretty much every other time, every other era in every other country, I think we're in the best spot that we can be.
Yeah, my point being is that obviously everything has its problems and its flaws.
Being in the best place doesn't mean it can't improve. Like,
Right.
yeah,
and I
for
want to
sure.
say, like, I would not want to be a black person in 1950 in America. America was horribly racist.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying it's not racist now. I mean, it was just out there. It was
Yeah.
just
Right.
so
It was overtly racist.
terrible. And again, still a problem to be solved for sure in the U.S. But I'm saying is, I don't think racism has gone away today. So it's not
No.
like, because we've
No,
solved
no.
racism today is good. I think a lot of times if you lived in the West, I'm saying, I think, depends, I guess here's my problem. How are you measuring what's the best time? Because I think people had joy and happiness. There's some simplicity in different times of life where there's just a simplisticness where we don't have these phones. We have right now, the rise in mental health challenges,
Yeah.
I think is 100% connected to the way we live in America today.
Absolutely.
Well, and a
And
lot
so
of those
that's
things are
been
choices.
created.
Yeah.
Those are choices.
What's
right?
what's
A lot of
funny
those
is
are
I
I'm
choices.
saying society. I'm
And
saying
I-
society creates
and I
this
would
stuff.
still
Sure.
argue that it's better.
I'm not even saying
than
you're
it
wrong.
was.
I'm just saying I think because we're in it, it's hard
Yeah.
to see other ways.
And I think that's good. I think that we forget how much perspective plays into our lives.
Right.
And so if you're down and out on your luck, if you are struggling to make a mortgage payment and struggling to provide for your family, I don't care what you say about technology, the car you drive, and how great your phone is. Life sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that should be real, and we should be addressing those things. And we are growing closer and closer towards an inflation rate, which is getting kind of out of control, and the gap between
What you make and what it costs to live.
dang.
And then my grandfather and yours and our family members, my grandfather, when he got to America, I'm sure he would think it's better being Italian now than it ever was in Chicago when he got
heck
here.
yeah.
So like his perspective would be like, oh no, this sucks.
My grandpa couldn't sell because
Your
he
name
was
is
Armenian.
Paneer because it was Paneer.
Changed
Mine's
the name.
pronounced Basil because it's
Yeah.
Basili.
Yep.
Did everything we could to blend in because
Exactly.
we have olive skin. You
Yep.
know what I mean? So like I said, like I get, and I'm funny if I asked my grandfather who was a blacksmith and built his own business, he might say, oh no, this is great. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like because that's
Right.
what he knows.
Yeah.
So
Because
yeah.
it's better than what they left a lot of times.
I
especially
will-
in
Oh
the
no,
years.
And
it's
that's the
100%
hope
better
for
than
each
what you
generation.
left.
I
Oh,
will
yeah,
say, health-wise, even though all the messed up stuff we've done with our food, people are living longer and there's better medical. Like that's like
Yeah.
the thought of being in the West and getting a splinter and dying,
Right.
from a splinter sounds terrible.
I'm just now cluing into how important like what we eat is and how just the process and the chemicals and
You're
the,
drinking
and,
carrot juice every day.
dude, I love carrot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have been making a bunch of decisions as I have a diet soda over here with me.
Yeah, me too.
It's funny because I'm just realizing of like, okay, I can't prevent all of it because, and I've thought about this because I actually did think, what if I just go totally clean? We grow a lot of fruit and vegetables at the house. We have chickens, so we eat those eggs that we know are good. Like, doing that, and I thought, what if I just go completely clean? And it took 5 minutes to look around, and I was like, oh, frick, I can't leave my house. I'll be prepping and cooking all day long.
All the time.
Otherwise, it's exhausting.
Well, and that's the hard part is like, I'll speak for myself. I'm a conservative. I like capitalism. But then I count on the government.
You're a pig.
To not let,
pig.
to not let these companies who are making money. That's pretty good. Squeak. To not let these companies making money, therefore put garbage in my food, though. You know what I mean? Like they're like, we need them to make money. So you're supposed to protect me a little bit
here. So
here.
this is the stand-up part, bringing it back to what Metaxas says. And I kind of want to take it off Metaxas because we're going to misrepresent him for sure. But it's the what are we supposed to do? Because here's the deal. I joke about it all the time. Ashley and I actually both joke about it, my wife and I, that we're capitalist pigs. I love capitalism. I think it's the best market out there. I think the free market rules. However,
I'm a fan too.
However, there's a lot of room for improvement.
100%.
I do not think we're
Gas
perfect.
is a monopoly right now, man.
I do not think we have
They're
arrived.
killing us.
Well, there's a ton of monopolies. Google just went into some more hearings because of the monopoly there.
Yes.
There are plenty of monopolies, and even outside of that, it's that concept right there. Look, I love that you, as a capitalist business, are trying to cut costs so that you can make more money. I actually want you to make a ton of money. I love that idea. I love businesses. Yeah. But there has to be something in place that says, could you stop adding poison to the food because it's cheaper?
Detriment to the people.
And they're doing it left and right, and that's what's kind of freaky. Like, there's no way around it. Everyone loves Pringles. They're delicious. They are freaking sawdust, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, there is that's the complicated, I mean, if you want it to be a prolonged business and in perpetuity with whatever they're selling, it has to last. And if you have insects and other pests, that's why they use those products, and I understand that. So then you have to protect that part of the environment.
We have to figure out.
There's got to be a line.
So how do you balance that?
There has to be a line.
I mean, that's unfortunate. The FDA is supposed to be drawing that line, and they suck.
Yeah.
That's kind of their job.
It's what's weird is how quickly I will sound like a conspiracy theorist because I'm like, it's not fair that a company can pay the FDA money to like. Then it doesn't work.
All right.
They're supposed to be stopping you.
So here's the question.
How do we do it?
What role does a Christian have in politics, in governance, in all this stuff? This is it. So and then what part of it is you should do, and what part of it is if you don't do it, you're evil? I'm going to throw that in there. Like you're like doing nothing. Would you be like, oh my gosh? So let's all agree. We all should stand up against Hitler. Let's get that on the table.
Absolutely.
Hitler shows up. It's all worth dying to stop him.
I would have just given him his certificate or his degree in art. He probably would have just been happy.
Dude, isn't it's always the funniest conversation. It's like, what if he just got they were like, dude, you actually do really well. You should keep painting.
So we know he's horrible there, but now let's just say we don't know who the next horrible person is going to be. So we're trying to filter that out right now.
And I think
what level do we stand up?
I think we have to take the attention off of the person. Because my problem is that people are going to say that's Trump is that, and they're going to say Biden is that. Yeah. And I'm just like,
well, they are now.
It's well, they're going to say that now. And so it's more of the movements. It's more of and
it's for the greater good. You're not instead of focusing on attacking that person's character.
But the part of this too is that America isn't Christian. We are,
right.
And so you're having to sort out with what is the moral position we should be taking in politics that the country might not agree with, because you might want to take a moral stance.
So let's look at
an American perspective.
Let's look at our individual roles. Let's try our best, and this is going to be crazy difficult, but let's try our best to individualize this to ourselves and say right now, currently, there is probably a cause or a movement or a societal shift that you disagree with. And it doesn't have to be that it's morally abhorrent, like it's terrible. It's just that there's something that you are like, man.
I've got a moral one that's pretty serious.
So
the Green Bay Packers.
I was just gonna say, I was like, I heard it in your voice.
They should not exist. So
right when I heard your voice shift, you said I got one, and I was like, he does, and then you were like, no, I got, and I'm like, oh no.
They should not be allowed to abuse my Chicago Bears since 1992. Someone needs to do something about that.
Dude, I think the Chicago Bears are the ones who are supposed to stand up at some
Rise up
point.
against your bully.
Do something.
It is evil. You've done nothing.
No, it's for the greater good, Joe.
But individually, so try and think of something, and let's talk about it. Obviously, keep some of the super divisive topics off.
Too late. We've talked
Like
about Nazis
what?
on this episode, so I don't really know.
That's true.
I don't really know where else we can go that's more uncomfortable.
Are Nazis divisive? If Nazis are divisive, we're in trouble.
They make people
In certain,
Do you know what it's funny is? It's not that they're divisive. It just makes people uncomfortable. You could be like, I hate Hitler and the Nazis. People are like, oh, you still just said that word.
So
They're they who should not be named.
They
okay,
did not see that
so
coming.
this is one, and I'm going to use this one just because you brought it up. It's one of I've got about 130 of these things where I'm just like it irritates me.
Launch us.
Like being an 8, everything bugs me. The concept of that there are things that you are not supposed to talk about.
Brutal for me.
Yeah.
I don't function well in that type of a society. I really don't, because I'm on the other side of nothing is sacred. Everything's funny. I can joke about anything. In fact, the more serious and like real it is to people, the funnier it is to me.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to something like you're not supposed to mention Hitler, I'm like, what are you, crazy? Because to me, the concept there is if you don't remember the past that the world
You'll
has
repeat
gone
it.
through,
You're doomed to repeat it.
we are going to sink back into that.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Like, I'll give you one
That's
that.
Metaxas' point, isn't it?
Yes.
He's concerned
So
with
it's the thought that, and I think that it's probably going to be about 20 years, but in roughly 20 years, I think people are going to look back and look at us and be like, you all let North Korea be North Korea?
Yeah.
Was the world insane back then to know exactly what was happening in North Korea? Because we all know nobody is confused about it.
Yeah.
And we're like, don't mess with them. They might have a nuke. We don't even know.
Yeah.
Just let them be. Because then I wonder, what is the role of the United States in policing the world? But then I wonder, what's the role of humans to be cool with other humans? Like, we're letting these things happen. The wars that are going on in Africa with the warlords that just take over small villages. I'm like, we know. We all know.
Yeah.
And then, so what are we
Well,
supposed to do?
that was
in
the
Brazil,
argument with
you know?
that was the argument with Ukraine. Like they're doing bad things over there. Like well, that's happening in a lot of
bad
places.
things are happening everywhere.
Yeah, so it's like people are there's genocide, there's murder. I was just reading people dying for their faith Christianity in different countries right now. 18 people were just gunned down this week, for being Christians. And so it's
Where was
happened.
that at? Where was that
I
at?
can't remember where it was. I just read it today, though, as I was looking through the stories. And then 3 other people were gunned down last week over their faith. And they were people who were on missions out doing some sort of aid. They're providing aid, and then they got gunned down.
Yeah, we had a
18 of them.
missionary in Guatemala that went to, I want to say we had a missionary there, and they had visitors that came, and the visitors got killed.
Yeah.
It was just like, it happens like now. Like, this isn't some rare thing.
So my big thing where you see me reacting from the get is I actually don't have the right answer. In fact, a lot of times when I listen to people talk about it, I'm always like, I don't know if you're separating Christianity from America very well. I love America. I'm so American, but at the same time,
you're right. Yeah.
but I'm always like, I think you're blending them in, because the reality is, to me, is I love the American blessings and rights we have. Amazing. Best country in the world. We have the most rights. I love it. That is not contingent upon me sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. I don't need it. I'm thankful for it. Do you want to pull my 501c3 because I'm talking about Jesus?
100%.
Teaching about? Yank it. No problem.
But what
you want to
about-
persecute me? Great.
But let's say this. Let's say, because we're talking about Jesus, they say, look, you guys are being a little too evangelistic. Like, you're going out and proselytizing too much. You are trying to draw too many people into the fold, into Christianity. If you want to keep talking about Jesus, we're going to pull your 501c3. Do you, A, say, okay, I'm going to keep preaching, or B, fight them pulling the 501c3, fight them pulling your rights?
That's good. What do you guys think?
Fight them.
Yeah. Okay,
What do you have to lose?
Well, that would be the Paul version of using his Roman rights to preach the gospel.
100%.
Right.
That's the same concept there. And I'm actually, so this is good. This is the right ideas. I think those are when you're able to make a one-to-one biblical a comparison.
Yeah.
I think those are really good. And again, I'm not even saying people can't make a good argument for some of the things they're willing to use their American ability to do it. I think you can. I don't think people are making that leap enough. And I think they're just saying, I don't like this.
So
I'm against
I
it.
like that. I agree 100% that we should be more thoughtful Instead of just saying, because I don't like it, God doesn't like it, or that God wants me to do something, we should be saying, okay, I don't like this. That's fine. Why don't I like it? Because a lot of times I find, and I think this is why I end up looking passive or quiet sometimes, because that happens all the time. People are like, Ryan's way too passive.
Very common.
Very common.
Passive Ryan.
Is because it's my name. It's what people say.
At it again.
Is because something will bug me, and then I stop because I'm like, hang on, does this bug me because it's messing with my comfort? Because that's not Christianity.
Sure.
So I have to really work through. Is it because my comfort is being challenged, or because my Christianity is being challenged?
Or is this infringing on someone else's rights as an American, and I'm imposing my biblical perspective on someone who's not yielding to that, or even believing that, or even accepting Christ as their Savior, and now I'm asking them to live to a moral standard that I believe exists for me and for us, but they don't, and in America, they allow them to not live to that biblical standard.
But is that, and again, we are gonna have some fun here. Can a society get together, like let's say we first did as a country, and if you want to even take that off the table, let's talk about the Acts 2 church and how they got together, and they had a collective moral standard that they held each other to. Ananias and Sapphira, like God held a real strong standard to that. What do you think? What if we're in a society like a church where we say this is our own little government? We even have our own governance and our rules that we abide by.
And we secede from America.
Seems
super normal.
But not even politically.
We have a cache of
but
weapons.
Like,
Should I not say
shoot.
FBI's coming in right now.
But let's not even say politically, but just as a group gets together, even friend groups.
No,
They've talked about sociology about this.
Is the word you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but even friend groups, like in sociology, they talk about how even friend groups will kind of create their own hierarchy and their own government with the small g, obviously. So what about a group, even a society, a larger society that says, hey, we've got these standards, and then a group, even if it's a small group, bands together and says, we don't like those rules, we want to change them. How? And we're like, but we already said we don't, like as a society, but you can change them. So what is a Christian's role, your role specifically, to stand up, do something, say something?
So a few years ago, there was a scenario, the bottoms up baristas or something like that, the bikini baristas over on Sean
I
Willow.
love you pretend like you don't know the
Right?
name.
I can't remember it if
He was
it's
a
the
regular
bikini
You know, the
baristas
southwest
or-
corner, Sean.
Hold on, let me get out my let me get out my points card.
You know they have the
Actually,
curb.
it's
You got to
somewhere.
pull around the curb kind of wide.
I only have 3 stamps on this. They closed down.
It's
And one
funny.
of my,
I have never heard of what you're talking about. I'm dead
so
serious.
it's literally, that's why I can't remember the name of it. Because
It was going for some real kind of
Yeah.
sexualized version
Was
of,
it?
of coffee.
Isn't it still there? I think
don't
it's
know.
still there.
I have no
It's
idea.
by Pep Boys.
I know there's one by only because when we used to play Riverside on Herndon, way
is that why
far
you know?
out
Is that
there.
why you know?
That's why.
That's why
There's
you know.
well, I don't drink coffee,
But they have a
That
great
was the
chai.
reason. That was the.
so I went there
refused
for
to go there
different
based on
reasons.
coffee.
Yeah,
He's really
it's
been
just
pushing
coffee.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't drink coffee, but I know where that coffee.
It was
place
just for this.
They're
No,
going to Hooters version of coffee.
I used to drive by it all the time, and it was something I don't even remember. Oh shoot!
Well, so it's the
it had a
same
catchy
concept,
name.
like-
it was a
Yeah.
concept like that. Yeah.
Hooters, Twin Peaks, all of these things, right?
Wait,
Was it Pink Panther?
Twin Peaks, the TV show?
Twin Peaks was a restaurant.
What was
a
Why do you know all the names of these?
It was.
places?
They were.
He just rolled them off.
They were 13.
Hooters, Twin Peaks.
on 7th. That one's over on Bullard. That one's
Twin Peaks was never local.
Hours
it was
9 to
on,
Oh, I've
7.
never even heard of it.
I think it was on
This
Undercover
one's
Boss.
24/7.
is
Check
where
out
I
their
saw that
website.
one.
And it's the same thing?
And it's the same
Okay,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
They were
Okay.
flannel tied up.
Wasn't that the
and
TV show? Wasn't it Twin
It was.
Peaks? That
Twin
was,
Peaks.
right? Okay.
All right,
So-
so go ahead.
Yeah.
And then a few years back in Kingsburg, there was a tarot card reader that people were trying to get the city council to pass legislation that would essentially take away their business license from the tarot card reader.
Take away the tarot cards.
And then I had a person that I knew, a friend of mine, was trying to start a petition to shut down the bikini barista place on Shaw.
Because
and
they thought it was
whatever
lewd for kids to be able to see that.
100%.
Sure.
And I understand that. It has always frustrated me that we as Christians would rather see the government legislate our beliefs than use the market in a free capital society to say, if we are if we really disagree with that this much, then shouldn't we be working to change culture, to impact culture in such a way that these things are no longer a viable business, that they can't make money?
So I would, the only thing I would say against that is, because I worked in anti-human trafficking for a long time.
I'm so glad that you have finally learned to add the anti.
I always have said anti. I've always said that. The thing I always said is, unless you can dry up the market,
right.
which my thing was, we should be going after the Johns, because the problem is, if there's a buyer, there will be a seller for anything on this planet, as disgusting and vile as it is. So my problem is, if we were to just say, let's let free markets work, I'm like, here's the sad part. Free markets are working just fine in the black market.
Right. Yeah.
That's why human trafficking is literally like the second largest illegal trade in the world.
So on a global scale, I get that. But in a town like Kingsburg or a small town like Clovis, if the market is calling for such a thing.
But would you want, because here's my thought, honestly, and this is why I do love our government. And the big joke is, like, it's the worst system in the world except for all the others.
Except for all others.
And so you've got this thing where we have this tool and this instrument that we've been given. And I don't want to say God-given, although I do kind of think possibly it was.
Well, the founding fathers would say that.
Right. Yeah. And so with that, I'm like, man, we have this instrument and this tool that we get to use. And I don't know, I think the Christians haven't been using it very well because we have shied away from it. This is kind of Metaxas' big point, is that we started with, dude, some of the greatest fathers of our faith recently, like within the last couple hundred years, were all guys who were very politically driven and very involved in politics. And then we've gotten to this place of...
And we're standing in the benefit of that right now. So you can see there is some
not only
benefit
standing in the benefit, but then we take that heritage and we say, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to offend other Christians or non-Christians, and we want to be real clear. We're not political because of our 501c3. We're not supposed to be political, which I like. I like that we're not advocating for a candidate.
That's not really our mission. Our mission is our mission is Jesus. But I like this tension.
But you also want to help people live the abundant life, which means, look, I don't want a strip club on every corner. I don't want naked people walking around because I have two young boys.
And is this line? This is the line, right? This is the line we're talking about. Is at what point do you say? So my dad, who was not a Christian, there was an adult bookstore that showed up in our town. And my dad got involved politically. It's the only time I ever seen him do it, and got it shut down. So we don't want that in here. We don't want that around here. Now, my dad wasn't a Christian, so it wasn't because of his moral duty as a Christian to infringe on somebody else's American rights. He took it as an American and said, I also have rights here as an American, and I don't want that in my town. And if I can get enough people to agree with me on that as an American, not a Christian,
but
he got it removed.
It was his moral standard
that
I agree. Caused him to do that based on his Catholic roots, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, he just wasn't driving it based on. So this is where I'm talking about that line between Christianity and you might be a believer and say, hey, I think that strip club is wrong, but my route is being an American citizen, and I have as much of a right as an American citizen to not want that as somebody has to want that.
I see what you're saying. So you're more talking about the route that we take, even though it is our Christian moral standard that's moving us. We don't use the church or our Christianity as the route. We use the government that we have the right of.
He's like, I'm a citizen.
It's the Paul version as a Roman citizen.
I've got rights as a Roman citizen.
I see.
And I'm a fan of that mentality
100%.
a lot.
Yeah. And that's my mindset as well, because I think that if we allow our Christianity to become our law, right, then how many generations are we away from some other religion being the law?
That's his point.
How close are you to Sharia law at that point? I mean, that essentially is Sharia.
Let's keep specifics out.
100%.
So that we don't get canceled and this whole video taken down.
We're going to get canceled anyway. It's just a matter of time.
Man, here's what's funny. I do have that worry.
Yeah.
I have that worry because, and this is what frustrates me, that even saying that, I'm like, oh, man, we're going to catch a lot of flack. And I'm like, why can't we talk about this?
I actually don't know what the repercussions of being canceled.
Nobody watches you.
So it would be taking down the channels, which for us isn't a huge deal. Although we have a very large following
so let's do
for our Sunday morning services. And and since these are tied together, I could see that. We're going to be fine.
But
like,
isn't that anyone else's right just to be like, no, I'm still going to support him?
Let's do it this way.
Sure,
Let's
but they do a good job of, I will say,
making
like,
it impossible to
they're
support.
very good at that side of
It's
things.
funny is
let's
this is
see.
where this is part of this conversation is, talking about standing up to stuff. Do you know what I mean? That somebody else's legend. Basically, the world is saying to us, like, hey, we don't want any of your Christianity. Don't shove it down our throat. And I would say as an American, but also don't take it off the air.
Right.
Like, meaning, like, if I have supporters, why should you be unilaterally deciding
Sure.
that I can't share Jesus?
Sure.
Because that's the free market, right?
As an American,
We should
American,
have
I'm
the
saying
option.
that.
So, and that's the scary part about that our free markets are nowhere near as free as I grew up thinking they were. Because when you have, and man, it frustrates me because even saying these things, I'm like, should I say it? But like Musk buying Twitter or X now, like, and YouTube
Bad
having the
branding
ability,
move, by the way.
I thought
That
it
was
was
a
stupid.
terrible
It was
branding
so
move.
dumb.
Well, they're still figuring it out.
He pushed so hard and then went,
Because
this is
there's
a
What
bad
was
idea.
wrong with
brands.
Twitter?
There's
Nobody,
so- oh my
nobody
gosh.
was not on
It's
Twitter
in the
because of it.
dictionary now.
Tweeting
Tweeting
was
is in the
so
dictionary.
knowable.
It was tweet. You tweet
Yeah.
something. I'm gonna
No,
It's
now you're
easy.
going to exit. I'm going to exit out.
Well, here's the good news: is Threads
I
isn't
mean, I
doing
wonder if
great.
that's what it is.
Threads isn't doing great. He's not threatened by Threads at all.
I
so.
know, that is amazing. But it's that it's interesting because, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this on YouTube, is like there's plenty of stuff that they can't say because if somebody flags it, YouTube will often shut it down before asking any questions just to make sure. And then when they do their process, sometimes they're like, yeah, we're not going to answer your emails for 3 weeks. By then, and here's the deal, our livelihoods are not tied to this, so
Yeah.
for us it's a little bit easier. There's a lot of people who have built their careers and their
Just
lives.
imagine if you
Sure.
imagine if you had a shop in the middle of town and somebody could just come back, you're shut down. You're like, what?
That's
Yeah.
the same
and,
thing.
and the 3
Yeah.
weeks goes by, and by then what you said is no longer relevant. So you've lost your ability to make the impact
Well,
and
the safety
and
for
monetize.
us is we haven't been relevant in a long
We've
time.
never been relevant.
And we're never really worried
Solid
about it.
point. Oh, I missed the black shirt memo. Son of a gun, I just saw it.
Yeah, you did.
This is how we stay relevant.
This is how it was there.
Good job, guys.
So continuing on in this dynamic, I guess I was thinking about is what would be that thing that if it happened
Ooh, I
or
like
is
this.
happening,
Yeah.
that you would say this is the place I'm going to take my stand, because I think we all have one. I have one too. And
I'm
it's
not
like
sure we should talk
we're-
about it.
well, you can if you want or not. I'm just asking the question. So
you can self-edit.
you can self-edit. Yeah. So mine would be things that involve children.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
they don't have the
for sure.
ability to make decisions for themselves. So
For
any
sure.
any of the things where people are deciding at the detriment of children, I'm in. Like I'm
So-
like, you know what? That's who I'm concerned about.
There are things right now that a lot of people are saying are at the detriment of children.
Yep.
Why are you not like taking, I don't know, action against
Who
those?
who gets to make the call of whether or not it's detrimental?
And
Well, Joe in this
Me-
case.
based
It
on
would be
his-
Joe.
based
well,
on
it
his
would
morals.
be, and I actually do take a stand. And here's a couple ways you can do this. First of all, we don't believe that protesting works, so I'm not doing that. I am shaping my voting.
That's kind of funny.
I do shape my voting.
Good.
That is something
Yeah.
I can do.
Okay.
I have the ability to be on political radio. Get to talk about it there. We get to talk about it as well. So
Also, how you
we aren't
treat-
staying silent. We are not silent.
It's also
That
how
is
you-
one
how you
thing.
counsel, how you treat your children.
That's
It's your local community and expands from there.
I have the ability to process politics and news out loud, and I'm making my voice known. Like, no, I think this is wrong.
You speak with your wallet too, where you shop to a degree. I mean, it doesn't make the difference, but it does make a difference.
And I really do think, as an American,
it would
voting,
make the largest difference if we could get our crap together and figure it out. Because that's the problem is a lot of the companies and things that I support, I don't realize what I'm supporting.
Right.
I'm buying the cheapest thing on the shelf or
Yep.
the product that I have come to love. I don't
So hard.
realize
know
like
the
the
manufacturing process.
I don't know that
or-
they've shifted their morality or whatever. And so
so
I'm like,
tough,
gosh,
right?
dang.
It's like 9,000 products we consume. So
Oh my gosh,
And that's not an
thousands,
excuse.
yeah.
It's just I don't know
It's
anybody
not an
who's
excuse, right?
people like when Target came out and they had the bathing suits that
Oh,
cost
yeah, that
people-
was a huge deal.
Well, in that instance, if that was something that bothered you morally, it was real easy to be like, I'm not doing that or I'm not buying that.
Yeah. Right.
But like, I don't know what Shell gas station's doing. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so
Right.
because
Oh.
they haven't gone public on anything. So
They're
I have no idea.
destroying the world. I'll
Right,
say that right
probably.
there. Gasoline. I don't know. People
Yeah,
hate
you know,
gasoline companies. Yeah.
So it's one of those things. And then more and more, Elon Musk, people are trying to unpeel the onion of his views and his beliefs to impact kind of,
that's another
Tesla.
one. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Because I think that onion has a lot of layers. That's
A
actually
lot
one
of
of the
layers.
reasons that I most like Elon Musk is because he's so confusing.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that because everybody the one that I thought was most interesting was the Oliver Anthony kid, the guy who did the rich men north of Richmond.
Yeah.
That song. A bunch of guys on the right clommed onto it and like used it as in fact, one of the guys used it as his like entrance to speeches and stuff. Oliver Anthony was like, dude, I wrote this about you too. Like he was, and his name's Chris something, but he was really angry at both sides.
Yeah.
And I actually, I
Which is the voice of his generation.
Yes. And I think I enjoy that more and more when I'm like, look, I think you're a bunch of rich a-holes too.
Yeah.
Like it's really upsetting to me that you are using your influence and power to just get wealthier versus helping others. So I'm mad at you too. Don't try and use, what I'm saying to further your agenda.
Right, because he's just as mad at the system for the government, how they're working with the poor and stuff like that. So this song addresses both. I do think there is also an element of it's not just how you vote. I think that's important. It's not how you talk about it because a lot of people running their mouth on social media. That's not helping anything. But I also think it's how you give charitably and how you serve. Because I think there are ways in which you can invest into if you're against something, a lot of times there's a juxtaposition of something you could support and be a part of, right?
Yeah.
So like somebody where they're talking about I'm going to say the word, say you're anti-abortion, you're pro-life. My response to it would be but then at the same time is how do you do in supporting orphans? Like where's your money in terms of that? Because what's going to happen, a lot of those kids are going to get put into the system.
Right.
And so I would say be balanced and make sure you're spending money at orphanages, serving orphanages, helping in the foster care system.
Yeah.
Get involved in that because you're saying we want these kids alive. Well, then we need to help feed them.
Yeah.
We need to help, take care of them.
Well,
Josh, do me a favor. Look up real quick charitable giving, and if it's gone up, down, plateaued. I'm just curious as to charitable giving in the United States, what has happened to that?
That was always one of my biggest frustrations because we grew up in a time period in the evangelical movement. It was really popular to protest at abortion clinics or Planned Parenthood or whatever.
Yeah.
But how many of those same people were swinging a hammer to build a home or do anything for the mother who feels like she has no choice?
Yeah.
Or
that was the pregnancy care centers that started popping up.
they're
I
great.
think that's a beautiful ministry, and
100%.
I would say I would push people if that's your issue, which by the way, I think that's a great issue to get behind.
Right.
Then I would say, not that you shouldn't protest, you can. It's that I would spend more energy and effort into volunteering at a pregnancy care center and ministering to and counseling people of how to keep a child.
Yep.
Rather than just saying, if you do this, if you get an abortion, you're the worst person who's ever lived.
Spend more
you're a
time
murderer.
focusing on a solution rather than just the problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that you're voicing your concerns about, what you think about taking the lives of unborn children, but just be balanced and saying, and I'm in on this because that's the natural result. Abortion's outlawed in the world, right? And you can't ever do it again.
Yeah.
That means it's on us then to care for these kids.
Yeah. You know what else I would do? It's funny when you were saying that. I think the realization of I would try my hardest, and this is, again, this whole podcast is from a pastor's perspective, is I would try my hardest to detach the person from the cause. Mm-hmm. We are demonizing individual people, and Scripture makes it real clear that our battle is not against flesh and blood. And so with that realization, I'm like, don't demonize and badmouth and crush the individual. Minister love. You can stand against what somebody's doing and love the heck out of them.
And you mentioned social media. That feeds into how we are interpersonally with our friends, our neighbors, coworkers. Mm-hmm. That really does kind of affect how we treat them and view them. Regarding the stats here, it says that 2022, Americans gave close to $500 billion to charity. 64% of that was from individuals. Not large companies or nonprofit. 21% total nonprofit.
How many? 500?
Close to 500 billion. So
was it up or
64%. It was down. It says it was down by. Forgive me here. I think it says 3.4%.
Okay.
Between
the
the past couple of years.
Right away, that is oddly impressive that 300-ish billion came from
But
individuals.
it oddly spiked during the pandemic.
Oh, good.
Interesting.
That's just people
Yeah.
in needs. People are in trouble.
Yeah, and I'd love to also know what charitable organizations were being supported. Just because I'm not trying to make a point. I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. I think that's fun. Always weird to me when something like the NFL has nonprofit status. That's craziest thing in the world to me.
These are
these
some of the problems.
This is an interesting.
get it.
This is actually a very interesting stat right here. 76% of survey respondents donate to the nonprofits they volunteer with, while 68% of the survey respondents volunteer with the organizations they donate to.
Interesting.
That sounds like the exact same stat with different numbers. I'm confused.
Sounds like
It
it's
is.
a chicken and egg.
It is,
It's a
but
chicken and egg.
But here's
I
what
think I like
here's
that
what's cool
higher
about that.
because it's higher with the organizations that they volunteer at.
Yeah.
So you start
'Cause they
serving at
see
an
what they're
organization,
doing.
it drives your donation.
Yeah, what
and
they're
I
investing.
love the idea because it's where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So when you start putting your money places, and when your heart is somewhere, you naturally give, and then you naturally serve. So you're giving. I think we put so much emphasis on the dollar when I'm like, for me, my emphasis is on time. I can give money to something and then I forget about it. But if I'm putting my time somewhere, if I'm showing up somewhere to volunteer, my heart is, I'm like, because that's where my treasure's
It's
at.
And a lot of it's
non-renewable resource.
Yeah.
81% of it contributes food or other goods to NPOs. So it's a lot of food.
Is
Did
there
you say NPOs?
Yeah, nonprofit organizations.
Oh, I've always heard NGOs, but I guess NPOs works too. Non-governmental organizations.
BINGOs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. You guys have anything more to say about this? I don't know if we've
So
solved.
much,
I don't know
but
if we've
what-
solved anything.
I think to put a bow on it, all I'm thinking is I would love it if all of us, and I think I'm saying this to myself as well as everybody else, is I would love to see all of us be more mindful of how we're maneuvering through life. I think oftentimes what happens is we go through our day and we're so distracted and focused on just our daily bread, like just figuring out how to get through the day. We're
Surviving for a lot of people.
we're trying to survive, that we don't pay much attention to what's going on. And what happens is we hear something on a stupid podcast from 4 idiots, and we get super angry.
3 idiots?
No, it's Joe Rogan when he has the
Is it-
guys
is
on.
it- right.
And we get so angry, and then we're just pissed off all day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, find that thing. Because the problem is there's probably 100 things that you could and probably even should be mad at right now in your life.
Yeah.
That's too much. It's too overwhelming. Pick the one that you care about that matters. And that's why I think the local church is so important, is just like that helps me. The local church helps me focus on what really matters, which is seeing people experience Jesus and live the abundant life. I'm like, that's what we're all about. So find a church that has, that is doing the things that you like.
Yeah.
I would say, don't put your Christianity on America, but as a Christian, act within your rights as an American.
It's good.
I think that's helpful.
I was hoping you were going to do some don't put your Christianity on America.
Because
but
America put
put
Christianity on
America
Europe.
on. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how we're going to work that.
Sing-songy.
I wanted it to be sing-songy. I couldn't get it.
I can't, the scripture James 4:17 keeps coming to mind through all of this. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, it's sin. And there are things that we can do, and even if it's at a micro level.
In the non-King
you
James
can-
version, anyone
There's
then who
Teddy
knows
Roosevelt.
knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it is sin. But thank
I
you.
learned it in
Thank you.
King James.
That is
King
actually
James
funny.
version.
Yeah.
Right.
My new study Bible is New King James, and it's different. It's different. Reading through it
Is
is.
that how you use the word wrong?
It's you said wrong differently.
Well, thanks for joining us on You Won't Hate It Live. I'm Josh.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Floyd.
I'm Joe.
Okay, now it's going to take 30 minutes to turn this off.
Yeah, so this
I got
is
to figure it out. We love you all. Thanks for being here.
Billy